Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Don't you understand the implications of this thing?
This is gonna be good. It's showtime.
The Burtonesque is a dark, surreal world from the imagination of Tim Burton. It goes into the depths of various techniques earlier on in the 1920s, such as the German Expressionism. The films like to portray dark themes alongside dark shadows that creep in the darkness. But what does define the Burtonesque? Well, the darkness and intensity of these films was what literally critics might call an objective correlative for the general mood of Germany, and the films that Tim Burton uses within the Burtonesque are well known as the German Expressionism, but perhaps more broadly, the mood of a continent or even a planet. It's all the shadows representing dread, which he uses quite often in quite of his films, more noticeably in Edward Scissorhands. More noticeably, German Expressionism in Tim Burton's Batman Returns has taken a lot of inspiration from Metropolis and has used quite a lot of German influence from the Expressionism. In one of the scenes in Batman Returns, you can clearly see that one of the set designs and the layout of Gotham is pretty similar to that of Metropolis, and the dark shadows and the intensity throughout the film correspond quite a lot to Metropolis and also Nosferatu.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey.
Burton's films all contemplate in near-sacred terms imagination's attempts to negotiate the mysteries of life, death and the human need for love that fills the interval between them. Wood is a variant, like the Penguin, Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice, of the irrepressible outsider who will not be denied, as well as a social outcast, which represents German Expressionism.
Your father?
He didn't wake up.
Edward Scissorhands has been inspired by Metropolis, as the creation scene of Edward is seen as that in Metropolis in one of the scenes, and the set design is quite similar, and the shadows and the overall look to it has been inspired by Metropolis, especially the scene when Edward is first seen and his creator is creating him. This seems quite similar from the shadows, the darkness, the overall texture. You can see that this has been inspired quite a lot. It shows that Burton has taken a lot of inspiration from a lot of films, and he's taken that to develop it into the Burtonesque and to try and transform it into his own imaginative ideas. From his weirdly good animated designs to his set designs, all have been inspired from films such as Metropolis, Nosferatu, La Chute de la Maison Usher, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Faust and Waterloo Bridge. These are just some films which Tim Burton has said he has taken inspiration from and he likes, alongside German Expressionism.
An apple pie.
Tim Burton's earlier work, which is animated, noticeably Vincent, is very, very dark, and it takes a lot of German Expressionism techniques, from the lighting to the darkness that surrounds it to the character that is somewhat a social outcast and is struggling with certain aspects. This is something of a horrific thing which you would see in German Expressionism. Stalk of the Celery Monster is also another early Burton animation, which also takes a lot of techniques from earlier work like Vincent Price, and also takes a lot of horror elements from big monster movies. This is one of them that shows that German Expressionism has been developed into the Burtonesque from Burton's earlier work. Hansel and Gretel is also another film which is a short animation which Burton did back in 1982, which shows the horror of what German Expressionism is, and it is a perfect example of the Burtonesque, which goes more into the horrors and the horrific ways of Hansel and Gretel, and is completely different on the children's storytelling. It goes more into the gothic, from the set design to the lighting to the way that it portrays the characters in a dark way, which is different to what Hansel and Gretel is. This shows that his imagination is beyond what the capability is of German expressionism, and it shows that that is what has inspired most of his later films like Edward Scissorhands, Sleepy Hollow, Beetlejuice, and also the biopic Ed Wood.
Don't like sex with girls?
No, I love sex with girls. Wearing their clothes makes me feel closer to them.
If you take a look at earlier Burtonesque films such as Vincent, Stark of the Celery Monster, Hansel and Gretel, Frankenweenie, Doctor of Doom, Lure, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents The Jar, you can see similarities to German expressionism, as well as this dark fantasies and horror elements that come within the themes of the characters, the set designs, and their overall look, which has been inspired by Vincent Price films. The earlier Burtonesque film, Doctor of Doom, is a perfect example of German expressionism because it is in black and white and it expresses and conveys very, very dark elements of early 1920s German expressionism, and the characters express their feelings and horror towards certain scenes which are in this film, and the shadows which have been portrayed are that similar as Nosferatu, and you can tell it's been taken inspiration from this film. A certain scene within Doctor of Doom shows that German expressionism at its best, and the horror elements and the inspiration that has gone from the 1920s film, which did take inspiration from German expressionism. The Burtonesque is known for its wacky, imaginative, creative ideas, set designs, and horror elements alongside fantasy elements. Tim Burton has worked alongside Danny Elfman on most of his films for the soundtracks. This is also something which defines the Burtonesque because certain soundtracks sound similar, and once a soundtrack comes on, you instantly know that it is in a Burtonesque film because of the fantasy horror feel. Like the music corresponds to the scenes and it gives it the atmosphere of German expressionism, as well as a horror fantasy-like world, and it all corresponds down to the music from Danny Elfman. But what does define Tim Burton's Burtonesque? Well, Burton could be described as having a gothic sensibility, and this way of looking at the world underpins the stories that he tells in his films and the way that he tells them. While Burton's artistry and imagination are remarkably individual, his films consciously place themselves within a particular tradition of storytelling and demonstrate his in-depthness to the inspiration and freedom that his early engagement with popular culture gave him. Burton reworks and echoes themes, images, and techniques from the text that fed his imagination during the avid years of his suburban childhood and adolescence. Burton's films privilege the strange and fantastical, both in terms of theme and of the world that is created. This fascination with the underside of normality, with figures cast out for their difference, is a key concern in Burton's films, a fascination that places him in the Gothic tradition of artists who privilege feeling over reason. Burtonesque stands out on its own, and some would say it is Gothic literature because it sought to reconnect with the dark side of life and human nature. The Burtonesque offers readers extremes of emotions, a chance to experience the thrill of terror and a glimpse of the chaos that constantly threatens the order we seek to impose on our lives. Burton approaches uncomfortable topics with great wit and humour, as if laughing at the world for taking itself too seriously. Burton uses satire, irony, and the anti-hero as a tool for social commentary, which is magnified by his justification of the cliché and the absurd. This is something which the Burtonesque has developed over the years and transformed into something which many people love to this day.
They live on after him. And in that way, he becomes immortal.